Welcome in, everyone, to the Football Addicts Anonymous podcast. It's been a while, but finally back. So should be rolling along nicely the rest of the summer, I think, with Monday shows at the very least. We might be able to get Friday shows back, but it might not be for a couple of weeks. But we are back. So we got a little bit to cover. Luckily, there wasn't too many big things that happened over the last week and a half or however long it's been. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah.
So today, since we missed a week of USFL action, we're going to recap weeks 4 and 5. And then we're going to get into some NFL news. We got the NFL schedule released on Thursday, that was. And have some transactions, some general stuff, a couple trades, post-draft trades. And then we will finish up continuing our 8th round with the NFC North today. But yeah, the veteran free agent market has been heating up a little bit. Some guys signed out there to a couple of them. I was surprised some of the deals, but anyways, week 4 USFL. This game was, I picked the Panthers. They should have won. It was a Jeff Fisher coaching decision that lost the game. How much more Jeff Fisher can you get losing the game on the 1 yard line by missing a 21-yard field goal and not opting to run another play from the 1 and kick the 21-yard field goal instead? So that's how this game ended. That's why the Panthers lost by 1 point. But yeah, this was the first full game, I believe, without Brian Scott for the Philly Stars. Case Cookus, nice game. He only turned it over once. Good percentage. Completion-wise, 190 yards. It's not great, but got the job done. And again, the Panthers should have won, despite Shea Patterson turning over 3 times. The Panthers still have one of the best defenses in the league. Even with a 1-3 record, their defense plays well every week. They just cannot get help from their offense. But yeah, Reggie Corbin, monster game for him. Most of those yards came on an 88-yard rushing touchdown. But he ended up 152 yards on 12 carries and that score. Paul Terry put the ball on the ground, but he was the leading rusher for the Stars. Not overly fantastic days from the wide receivers on either team. And defensively, my defensive player of the game is Channing Stribling for the Stars. He only had 1 tackle, and it was a solo, but he stuffed the stat sheet. 1 sack, a tackle for loss, 2 picks, and 3 pass deflections. And like I said down there, Michael Carrizosa, he was cut after this game. 1 for 2 field goals, 22 long, missed the only extra point, which would have made this game a tie game, and we would have had our first USFL overtime of the season. But yeah, and then, like I said, missed the 21-yard game-winning field goal. Pretty bad.
Tough looks. I feel like I brought this up before, but I think it's interesting that the Panthers seem to have some of the biggest names in the USFL, like Jeff Fisher, Shea Patterson, Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch was a former first-round pick.
Yeah,
and
in the USFL.
Yeah, and they just can't seem to put it together.
Yeah, it's like I said, if they could get some help on offense, their defense has been outstanding. But it's just, they need an offense. And when you pick Shea Patterson #1 overall in the draft, you kind of are stuck with him. You know, you can't really justify cutting him. So yeah, the Stars did cover though, +1 over 36.5 hit on that one. For some reason on the Fox Sports app, there weren't any odds in terms of lines for this game. They did have over unders, but I don't know why they just didn't have any line point spread for these games. So I had to find it elsewhere on the internet. So whether these numbers are accurate or not, I don't know. Because I had found this article the week of week 4, 2 weeks ago. But I don't know. Because then they went back and they had spreads this weekend. So
I mean, I think we're doing a good job of providing as much USFL info as we possibly can.
yeah. So Saturday, the May 7th, we had the Generals getting to 3-1, 21-13 win against the Pittsburgh Maulers, who continued to be winless. Kirby Wilson still not working out so far with his run first attack. Once again, quarterback play was middling. DeAndre Johnson, I mean, is great. 90% on 10 throws, 98 yards, touchdown. Rushing attack wasn't there for DeAndre in this game. Only 14 yards on 11 carries. But they got it done. It was not a great game overall. I mean, Trey Walker and Alonzo Moore had the games. Walker for the Maulers, 9 receptions, 110 yards on 17 targets. So over half of Lauletta's pass attempts went to Trey Walker. And Alonzo Moore for the Generals, 3 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown, caught all 3 of his targets. Kevontae Turpin had a nice game. He's kind of been coming on for the Generals the last couple of weeks. And getting back to what he did at TCU, which was running and catching the ball. But he had 6 catches, 28 yards, 7 targets there, 4 carries, 37 yards, and a rushing touchdown. I don't know who you want to pick defensively. I guess I'll go with the guy on the winning team. Toby Johnson, defensive tackle for the Generals. 6 tackles, 2 of them solos, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss.
Would it be fair to say that the Maulers are the worst team in the USFL? Mm-hmm. At least in this, from the sample size that we currently have.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a lot like the Panthers, though. I think the Maulers have a pretty good defense. It's just their offense has not helped them out at all. And it's what we saw with the Panthers, the same thing. They just don't have a capable enough quarterback to win them games. Especially with what we talked about with what the Maulers want to do under Kirby Wilson, which is run the ball. And you look, their leading rusher is Madre London. Now he has a good average, but he only carried it 5 times for 43 yards. Their #1 guy is Garrett Groshek, but he only averaged 2.6 yards per carry. So, without the passing attack, and you have Lauletta throwing under 50%, which is absolutely terrible. It's hard to get there. So Maulers did cover though, +9. They got it by 1. Under 35.5 hit by 1.5. The other game last Saturday, the Stallions continue to be the opposite of the Pittsburgh Maulers and stay undefeated. 16-10 win over the Bandits. Low scoring game. I was kind of surprised. These two offenses were, I think they were both in the 20s in terms of points per game. But Alex Magoo came back, and I think this was his first game back after being injured week 1. Was not the greatest. Neither quarterback was. But neither quarterback turned it over. It was a clean game for the most part. Marable, 55 yards on 17 carries. Neither running game was good. You had Victor Bolden for the Stallions with 10 targets, but he only caught half of those for 61 yards. Rashard Davis scored a touchdown. Cheyenne O'Grady was the leading receiver for Tampa. 2 catches, 35 yards. That's it on 3 targets. And a lot of defensive stats because that's what the game was. So I like Travis Feeney, even though he was on the losing side, but he's been a great player for the Bandits so far. 9 tackles, 4 of them solos, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass deflection. And then the man of the game, the guy that's won it and has been, he's been the best kicker in the USFL so far. Brandon Aubrey for the Stallions, 3 of 4, 75%, 49 long, and he hit his only extra point. And the crazy thing is he was never a kicker until this year. He played soccer. He was in the MLS, played soccer at Notre Dame. First time he played football was with the Stallions in the USFL. So,
wow. I always like those stories, those guys who can transition from like other sports to football.
Yeah. And he's been a monster, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Stallions continue to roll on. They were the team that I did not see coming. I just didn't know how their quarterback situation was going to play out. I didn't know anything about Jamar Smith, their other quarterback. I did know about Alex McGough because he was drafted by the Seahawks. But, yeah, those 2 guys have been getting it done. And their defense is good too. So,
Yeah, it looks like that. A lot of this success is coming from pretty complimentary football, it would seem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think trying to think, I can't remember who their head coach is defending him. But I can check real quick. It's been annoying. I couldn't print the script out or anything. They apparently didn't have a printer that I could use here at the good old Country Inn and Suites in Dunn, North Carolina. Skip Holtz been getting it done. So the Stallions covered -3.5, under 41.5 easily. All right, last Sunday, we had the Breakers getting to 3-1, 23-16. And again, the Houston Gamblers, we'll talk more about this when we see their week 5 score. They are choke artists. They cannot hold a lead going in or in the fourth quarter. They just can't. They've had leads in all of their games. All 3 of their losses, they've had leads in the fourth quarter, and they lose because I watched the end of this game. This was a miraculous drive. I will have to give it to Kyle Sloter. He was a monster in this game, threw 3 picks, had a fumble, but that one touchdown was the one that won the game as time expired. Or I think there was like 4 seconds left or whatever. He hit Jonathan Adams down the sideline, and Adams went up and got it.
Yeah. Yep, I had the chance to – I kind of saw that play on my feed. And when you're looking for kind of success in a developmental league like this, you want those kind of signature moments to have, those cool moments that people talk about. So it was pretty cool to see it kind of talked about on the feed, on my Twitter feed. So yeah, it was a pretty cool play.
Yeah, and they're like, why go for the field goal, which is not a sure thing, especially in the USFL,
right,
when you can win it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Slaughter was great in this game. Jordan Ellis had a 100-yard rushing game, 19 carries, 104 yards, touchdown, 4 catches, 17 yards. He got targeted 7 times out of the backfield, which is crazy. I mean, Slaughter threw it 43 times. But leading rusher was interesting for the Gamblers. There was a guy that also got Mark Thompson for them, their leading rusher. He got more carries than Devois Whaley did, but Whaley led the team in rushing. 3 carries for 11 yards. Also had a 15-yard catch. Former Titan, Taywan Taylor. Great game for him. Him and Jonathan Adams both have 100-yard days, 4 catches, 112 yards on 5 targets. Adams, 6 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown, the game winner on 9 targets. Their tight end for New Orleans also had 9 targets, 5 for 82, Sal Cannella. JoJo Ward scored for the Gamblers. And defensively, I got to go on the losing end because that's where most of the stats were. I am going corner Will Likely for the Gamblers. 7 tackles, 6 solos, a tackle for loss, a pick, and 3 pass deflections. We'll see him. I think I have him listed in the week 5 scores as well, including his week 5 stat line. He has 4 picks in 5 weeks. So Will Likely's been putting up stats on defense.
3 pass breakups too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was good in this game. Even though he was the one that Adams beat, I believe, for the game winner. The Breakers covered because of the touchdown instead of the field goal, -5, and under 41.5. So once again, it was 3 for 4 on the unders in week 4. So I think you're still safe betting unders in the USFL. Even though we've had some games where there's offense, they continue. We'll see it change. We'll see it change in week 5. But through 4 weeks, it was pretty good for the under bettors. But starting off week 5 on Friday, we had one game. The Bandits getting it done, beating the Panthers 27-20. And this one, Shea Patterson played well. 52%, 304, 1 touchdown, only threw 1 interception. Ta'amu was nice, no turnovers, 207, 2 touchdowns on, again, around 62%. Once again, Tampa has issues running the ball, but that's been the case the entire season. But Juwan Washington did score twice. Reggie Corbin, massive decline from the 100, whatever it was, yards in week 4 to 28. The Tampa defense was outstanding. But yeah, I think this one, if I am right, the Panthers almost came back. Yeah, they came back from down 20-13. Yeah, so they were down 7. That was their biggest deficit, was 20-13. But again, made it a 1-score game, and then they got to the Michigan 41-yard line, and then Cameron Scarlett fumbled the game away for Michigan. But receiving wise, Lance Lenore, John Franklin, both good games for Michigan and Tampa. Petway had 80 yards. Michigan also did a lot of trick plays in this game. It was very weird. They did, I think, 3 Yeah. They had 3 other players throw a pass in this game. One was LaMichael Petway. His was incomplete. They had their kicker throw a pass. He completed his one for 9 yards. And then Joe Walker didn't catch a ball, was targeted twice, but he did throw a 30-yard touchdown to Ryan O'Malley. So one of them worked anyways. Like I said, Cole Murphy did complete his ball, which ended up being a first down, but not a touchdown. So 2 of them worked, but it didn't get the job done. Jeff Fisher falls to 1-4. And defensively, I don't know. There were a lot of good performances. Christian Sam for the Bandits, but I'm going Greg Reeves for Tampa as well. 7 tackles, 5 of them solo, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, a pass deflection, and a forced fumble.
Yeah. Anytime you can put up multiple sacks, you're going to be in a good position to be defensive player of the week.
And he was the guy that forced the fumble of Cam Scarlett that Tampa recovered to win the game. The Bandits covered -2.5 and over 33.5 hit. All 4 games in week 5 went over. That's why I say it's going to change. I mean, they were low. None of them hit. None of them even got to 37 in terms of the actual over-under line.
Yeah, it's going to be like a pendulum. It's going to be like
set them low.
Yeah,
they finally realized and started setting them real low. But the Generals continue their great season, 4-1 now, 27-17. This was supposed to be the game, 3-1 versus 3-1. I was on the losing end. I had the Breakers, but DeAndre Johnson came back and had a nice game. Again, not fantastic on the ground, but he did score twice. Efficient through the air. Only 1 turnover there. Sloter had 2 picks, under 50% completion. And it just was a tough day. The Generals' defense was playing very well. And Darius Victor had a nice day on the ground for New Jersey. They continued to, they're the team that is actually able to run the ball. They are what the Maulers want to be. But they just can't. So, but yeah, Jersey is on a roll right now. Kavonte Turpin, he had a solid game, 5 for 106, 6 targets there. Adams scored again in this game. Johnny Dixon scored. He had 13 targets. That's crazy. And then defensively, I'm going with safety Shalom Luwani, who has also been one of the bright stars in the first half of the regular season here for the USFL. 6 tackles, 4 solos, 2 picks, and 2 pass deflections. The Generals cover +3, over 36.5. Yesterday, the final 2 games, the Stallions, they're halfway through the season. They are 5-0, 30-17 over the Stars. I had the Stallions in this game as well. Jamar Smith came back. Alex Magoo, I don't know if he got hurt again. I didn't get to watch this game, but if he didn't get hurt, he was just pulled for Jamar Smith because of poor play, as you can see. Under 40% completion, only 50 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Jamar Smith, he didn't turn it over. 2 touchdowns, one through the air, 1 on the ground, and that's a pristine completion percentage there. Cookus didn't do enough. 215, turned the ball over once. Marable was great for the Stallions. 23 carries, 114 yards, touchdown. did turn it over once, but chipped in 2 receptions for 17 yards as well. Paul Terry was leading rusher for Philly. Only had 2 carries, but ran I think he had a 40-something yard touchdown. 5 catches, 43 yards off 6 targets there. Matt Coburn, he scored as well, but terrible average, put the ball on the ground. Former UCF Golden Knight there, Marlon Williams, 5 for 74 and a touchdown on 8 targets for Birmingham. And defensively, there's a lot of stats, but Josh Banderas on losing end for the Stars, 12 tackles, 7 of them solo, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see. I mean, across the board, I'm going to be interested to see how much talent the NFL can pull from the USFL. But I'm really interested defensively if they can pull a lot of talent from the defensive pool, because, I mean, as a Packer fan, I know the potential benefit of bringing in some guys which have high upside and what they can do for your team. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think there's a big question. I don't know if NFL evaluators are actually asking this, but I think the biggest thing is it real good defense or is it just easy defense because the offenses are bad? The Stallions covered -6 over 35.5 easily. 47 this game. And the last game, the Maulers got their first win of the season, 21-20 against the Gamblers. And like I said in week 4, it's the same story for Houston in week 5. They just blew it in the fourth quarter. I mean, I watched the end of this game, and it was absolutely pitiful that they could not stop the new quarterback for the Maulers, who cut Josh Love. They waived Josh Love. They picked up Vadley, who played at James Madison. So he had a nice game. Wasn't the greatest, but he scored the game-winning touchdown. He threw the game winner to Bailey Gaither as time expired. And I mean, it was like Houston had a 17-9 lead, right? With when did they start this drive? I think with 7:10 left in the fourth quarter, 7 minutes, 10 seconds left in the fourth quarter, they were up by 16 points, 2 possessions. They then, on their next drive, after a Pittsburgh punt, Clayton Thorson gets stripped. Carlo Kemp recovers. The Maulers are set up on the Houston 26. They go down 2 plays, 42 seconds, score a touchdown. Get it to within 2. They missed the 2-point conversion. Houston goes down 7 plays, 49 yards, kicks a field goal to get it to 5. And then, I mean, Vadley put on a drive at the end. They got the ball with 3:34 at their own 29-yard line. 15 plays, 71 yards, 3:34. Scored through the game-winning touchdown was a 9-yarder to Bailey Gaither, who had some great catches on the final drive. But, yeah, Kyle Lauletta went in for the first drive. They kicked a field goal, or they missed a field goal, and never saw him the rest of the way. But again, it was middling performance for Clayton Thorson. He got his hand hurt in this game. He hit it off one of his offensive linemen's helmet. And I know they were talking about it during the game, but I was shocked that they just didn't put in another quarterback. I mean, after his hand got hurt, you could see he couldn't throw the ball right. It wouldn't come out of his hand the way he was throwing it. So I don't know what their options are. I mean, I don't know what else they have at quarterback. But yeah, Mark Thompson had rebounded. He had a nice game on the ground, even in a losing effort. Garrett Groshek continues to be just gross dirt. I mean, why? I don't even. Why do they even keep handing the ball? He's terrible, absolutely terrible.
Yeah, my boy is underwhelming currently.
Every week. But yeah, Bailey Gaither was a star of this game. 8 catches, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. Trey Walker had a nice game too. 10 catches, 92 yards, 13 targets for him. Zuber scored for Houston. And then, like I said, there's my guy Will Likely again for the Gamblers. 8 tackles, 7 of them solo. He had a half a sack, a pick, and 2 pass deflections. So I'm looking at their Houston's roster here. So most teams are carrying just 2 quarterbacks. So their other quarterback on the roster, at least on the Fox Sports website right now, is Kenji Bahar. So, I mean, he's been in the league, was with the Ravens a couple times in camp, played collegiately at Monmouth. But I feel like they had to. They should have put Bahar in. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what Houston does. But
well, it's interesting too because I feel like a lot of these teams are using both their quarterbacks in some capacity. So, yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't at least try to do something there.
Yeah. So we're at the halfway point of the USFL season. Before we talk about that, Maulers plus 5.5 here, over 33.5 easily. Do you have a pick? So the current, just for reference, the current USFL playoffs as they sit right now, it would be in the North Division, it would be the Generals against the Stars. And in the South, it would be the Stallions against the Breakers in the playoffs. Do you have a pick at the halfway point of the regular season?
It's hard to bet against Birmingham, but I also I don't know if I see them, just being that dominant. I kind of like the Generals. I kind of want to go with the Generals. I think they play pretty good complementary football. I think the defense is decent. And that's it. They have DeAndre Jordan, right? That's their QB.
Johnson.
DeAndre Johnson. I like his rushing ability. I think that makes them a lot more dynamic than a lot of the other teams in the USFL, and I think that'll carry them well into the postseason.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think the Generals by far have the easiest path to the USFL championship. I think it's a crapshoot on who gets in at that second spot in the North between the Stars, the Panthers, and the Maulers. I mean, it could realistically be any of those teams. And I think with the Stars not having Brian Scott anymore, I mean, that was a massive loss for them. Case Cookus just hasn't been it. So I think the Panthers get in somehow, and they're only a game back of the Stars. No one's going to touch the Generals in the North. and I think the Generals just roll whoever they get matched up with in that North division championship.
Right.
But as far as the South, it's going to suck for the South. There are three good teams at the top, and one of them's not going to make it. The Stallions, Breakers, and the Breakers and Bandits are both at 3-2 right now. I don't know what the tiebreaker is, but the Breakers, I think it's head to head, maybe right now. I think the Breakers beat the Bandits earlier on, so that is why they're in second. But I'm holding out hope for my Bandits. I don't know if they can win the whole thing, but I think if they get in, I think they'll have a chance against the Stallions. But I don't know. I think it might end up just being the top two in the championship jersey against Birmingham. But I would agree. I think the Generals though are probably my pick as well. Their rushing attack is just phenomenal. Even with DeAndre Johnson not having the greatest rushing days the last 2 weeks, I would think that they are still by far, I mean, they're averaging 180.2 rushing yards per game. So and that is, let me see what that, they're 11 yards more than the next closest one, which is Pittsburgh, 169.2. And those two teams are way out in front of the Stallions in third. But yeah, I mean, they have 901 rushing yards through 5 games. So
yeah,
they've been toting the rock. And they got that's the crazy thing, I think, with them, just to go back. And you look at, Darius Victor at almost 100 yards, but he's been really their bell cow work. They're back. And he actually leads the league in rushing touchdowns with 5. See where and he's 4th overall in rushing yards, 308 yards through 5 games. But yeah, it's it would be crazy if Houston wouldn't be choke artists, because that would make that South division even more interesting. But at 1-4, I mean, I highly doubt they can make a run with only 5 games left. All right. Into NFL news. So we had the 2022 schedule released on Thursday. I didn't have too much to say about that. And I realized I didn't write in what the Thursday night opener was. But I believe it's the Rams and the Bills on that Thursday night, September 8th. The Hall of Fame game will be August 4th, Jags Raiders. So it's a great marketing game right there.
It's the Doug Peterson revenge.
But Jags Raiders is your Hall of Fame game this year. Like I said, Rams Bills is your Thursday night opener. And February 12th, 2023, we will have Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Arizona at the Cardinals Stadium. Interesting nugget from Field Yates. The Jags continued a streak with the NFL schedule release. They will not be on Monday Night Football for the 11th straight season. So no Monday night games for Jacksonville once again. In terms of my teams anyways, I was very happy with my Eagles schedule. They have a nice, easy schedule. I didn't see anywhere where people put out any of the schedule rankings, strength of schedule. I don't know if you did, but
yeah, there were some. I don't really remember, other than the Packers. I knew have a at least based on last year's win totals, they have a pretty easy schedule. But yeah, I don't know much about who else or who has like the toughest.
I know the Seahawks, they have to travel the most, like 30,000 miles or something like that. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, I was happy with the Eagles schedule. The Steelers schedule is decently nice. They have some hard stretches. And then I was absolutely outraged by the Panthers schedule. I mean, this team finished last in their division, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are just getting railed with the schedule. I mean, they got to face Deshaun Watson week 1. Grant, we'll talk about that. Even if he makes it in week 1. But I mean, even the Giants in week 2, if Dayball's got Daniel Jones on the right track, that could be a hard one. I mean, if Jameis is healthy week 3, we got the Saints. But then it's like, bro, we got 3 in a row NFC West. We got to face Kyler Murray. I don't know what the Niners are going to look like with Trey Lance, but their defense is good anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to go to LA to play the Rams. And then we got to face Tom Brady. The Panthers also play the Bengals, the Ravens. We got to play Russell Wilson and the Broncos because they finished 4th in their division. Come on, dude. They got to play the Steelers and TJ Watt, and obviously the Bucks and Saints again. I mean, the Panthers have one of the hardest schedules for a 4th place team.
Yep. Listen, man, I got 4 words. Tank for Bryce Young. Just lean into it.
I would say that, but my issue is that I like Matt Rule. And he's not going to be there if they're picking in the top 5 next year.
Yeah.
So
he's probably got the hottest seat of anybody in the league right now.
Yeah. But it's not even like it's his fault. Like, I don't know if he was the one that wanted to get Sam Darnold. I don't know. I hope that Sam Darnold struggles and Matt Corral comes in and just lights it up. That's the hope.
I mean, honestly, like I heard, and I don't know who remembers it or who said this. I don't remember, but there was a theory that somebody put out that you just should not have bridge quarterbacks, like no bridge quarterbacks. You either have a veteran guy who you believe you can win games with, or you just throw somebody in who has upside, who you want to see work. Mm-hmm. Like the Panthers are probably going to start the season with Sam Darnold, and he's probably going to play around half or more of the games. But I mean, I feel like in the long run for your franchise, I feel like it's just better to have a 17-game sample size of Matt Corral.
Well, like, especially if you're gonna be up there high in the draft again,
right,
and have that opportunity, you got to know what you got,
right,
in your 3rd round pick.
Right, and it's like we know who Sam Darnold is. Like, he had every opportunity last year when he left the Jets to come in and be successful with the weapons they have in Carolina, and just really wasn't able to do it. So we know what we got from Sam Darnold, but we don't know what we have in Matt Corral.
And I think though Sam Darnold can do it. I mean, we saw what it looked like with Christian McCaffrey. With CMC on the field, Sam Darnold is completely different. I mean, I think that goes for any quarterback that plays with Christian McCaffrey. You're gonna be better. Mm-hmm. So obviously if McCaffrey can stay on the field, That's issue number one for the Panthers. Keep 22 on the field. But yeah, I'm scared for the Panthers this season. They are going to have a tough year.
So I got the strength of schedule pulled up. Big shocker. 3 of the top 5 teams are NFC West teams, Rams, Cardinals, and 49ers, because they all have to play each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 3 teams with the easiest schedule are all NFC East teams, the Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders.
Yeah, the NFC East playing against each other, and I think playing against the NFC North outside of the Packers is it's pretty easy games.
And actually,
even Vikings. I mean,
actually, the NFC East occupies all 4 of the easiest spots. The Giants are at 29, and the Cowboys and Commanders are tied for 31st. Eagles at 30th. So.
Okay. So that was the schedule. We'll talk scheduling more when we get into our July shows and start looking at season previews for each team. But going back to more NFL news, former Seahawks and 49ers corner Richard Sherman, he has signed a deal with Amazon for a key role in programming this season. So I think Richard Sherman will be calling games on Amazon Prime Video for Thursday nights this year.
It's pretty interesting. It feels weird because it feels like it wasn't that long ago that he was, playing. Now he's just completely into kind of the media sphere.
Oh, I forgot to say former Bucks corner as well.
Oh yeah.
But unsigned currently. He's still hoping to get signed, but if he does not, he will be on Amazon Prime Video for Thursday night games, which still holding out for getting my subscription. I'll hold out until August and then I'll buy that. But get that first month of the season free and then pay whatever it is for the rest of the season. Also in broadcasting news, Bucks quarterback Tom Brady signed a deal with Fox Sports. He will be joining them as their lead NFL analyst whenever he retires, whenever that is. I know Ian Rappaport quote tweeted and put 2045. 10 years, 375 million is his deal with Fox Sports. That is more money than the man has made over his 21 NFL seasons. 22, whatever it is. I don't know what it is anymore. 21, 22, whatever it is. He's made, I think it's 333 million over his 20 plus NFL seasons. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. And what's crazy is, I mean, this deal still hasn't been able to just bring him out of retirement. Like you said, he's making more money than he is playing. Mm-hmm. And he's still like, nah, I still got to play. I heard on a podcast the other day, and they said he's like, he just literally must be addicted to the game of football. Because like becoming a lead analyst is not easy, and it requires a lot of prep work, and you got to travel a bunch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's going to be no like buffer time. He's going to go whenever he retires, whether that's next season or the year after that. It's going to kick right into that. So, I don't know, man. He's a different animal, dude.
I just don't know how he's going to be. I mean, like, obviously Tom Brady has a personality, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like he will bring a lot of like insight into like, especially offensively in terms of like how to read a defense and like how the plays are being designed, stuff like that. I feel like I feel pretty good about his ability to bring that side. And then, you know, I feel like his personality will come along as it goes.
Yeah, because I feel like he's just like pretty quiet when he's not playing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, that was pretty crazy, that deal. We had two trades go down in the last couple weeks, both involving the Las Vegas Raiders. So the first one here, they got a new quarterback. Subsequent transaction was a release of quarterback Nathan Peterman. John Gruden's guy, Nathan Peterman, stuck with the Raiders for quite a while. But yeah, the Raiders reuniting Josh McDaniels with his former quarterback, Jarrett Stidham. They got a 2023 7 with Stidham. Patriots got back a 23 6. So nice deal all around. Raiders get their third string quarterback. I can't recall who they signed as their. I feel like it's the same thing. I know him every time, but I always forget who they signed. Nick Mullins. So the Raiders better pray that Derek Carr does not get hurt. Nick Mullins, Jarrett Stidham, and good old Cal Golden Bear, Chase Garbers.
Wow.
Are your three quarterbacks behind Derek Carr. At that point, you might as well just throw Devontae Adams or Darren Waller behind center.
Yeah. Just run the triple option.
Yeah. But McDaniels likes Stidham, apparently.
Yeah, that's interesting. This is actually a pretty decent move for the Pats. I mean, what was Stidham like he couldn't have been more than like a fourth rounder when he came out, right? And they drafted Zappy. So I mean they didn't really have any leverage, but still come out with a 6th round pick. I mean, I feel like that's decent value.
Yeah, I think he was a fourth or fifth. Fourth, yeah. Fourth in 2019. And yeah, the Patriots, they are looking at Mac Jones, Brian Hoyer, and Bailey Zappi. That's it. They don't have any other ones.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, this is what Belichick likes to do: draft the quarterback, trade him. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the Eagles' philosophy too. That's what Howie Roseman does the same thing, or wants to, anyways. But yeah, that is the first trade. And the second one, the Raiders traded a player away. The Falcons bolstering their wide receiver room. Brian Edwards going to Atlanta from Vegas, along with the 23-7. In my draft Excel sheet, I just floated that New England pick right to Atlanta. I don't know if it's the Patriots pick or the Raiders pick in the 7th round. We won't know until probably the week of the draft next year. But yeah, I just kind of moved that right along to Atlanta. And I thought this was a nice get for the Raiders, 23-5th. For a guy that the Raiders drafted. Okay, so yeah, I mean, they drafted him in the 3rd round, but I thought with what he has produced over his career, it's to get a fifth out of this was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah. What I find interesting is what the Falcons are doing at wide receiver. If you like look at kind of their top pass catchers, they're building like a basketball team. You got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London, Auden Tate, now Brian Edwards. Those are some big dudes. And I mean, essentially, it's Marcus, throw the ball up and see what happens.
Yeah, Drake London, Auden Tate, 6'5", Brian Edwards, 6'3". Even Kadero Hodge, you got it 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Olamide Zaccheaus at 5'8".
Yeah, right. He's the one outlier.
I mean, and they just signed, we'll talk about Geronimo Allison today, 6'3". So yeah, I mean Demir Bird is there too, 5'9". But yeah. It's weird. I mean, I feel Atlanta is kind of like Houston last year, where it's like, bro, what is the direction? Like, what are they actually like trying to go towards? And I guess you found it out anyways.
I mean,
yeah,
you could do worse, I feel like, especially with where this roster was at and that wide receiver room. I mean, prior to the draft, it was clearly bottom 5, possibly the worst.
It was the worst.
Yeah, possibly like the worst in the NFL. And now they kind of at least have a identity there. I don't know. I just think it'll be a really cool case study to see, you know, how does that, will their red zone efficiency be better than the league average because of the size, or are they going to struggle because they don't have a top end like speed talent necessarily? So I don't know.
I don't think their red zone efficiency will matter because I don't think they'll get close enough in a majority of the games.
Right.
But it's also weird too, because I don't necessarily think the size thing is going to matter either, because Marcus Mariota is not that erratic, you know, throwing guy of the likes of like, you know, Cam Newton, where that's why, you know, when the Panthers drafted Cam Newton and then they saw a couple years, that's why they drafted Kelvin Benjamin and some of the other bigger guys that they got, because they needed big guys with large catch radiuses to haul in the erratic throws. But I don't necessarily think Marcus Mariota is that kind of guy, especially with what we saw in Vegas. I thought he developed in Vegas the couple years he was there more than he did in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into some player stuff, I saw a little thing from Adam Schefter's podcast. Monday Night Football starting in next season, 2023. They're finally going to a flex scheduling for Monday Night Football. Weeks 14 to 18 next season will be flex scheduling, just like Sunday night is. And also there will be 3 Monday night doubleheaders next year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, you knew Troy and Buck weren't going to be leaving to just call a bunch of bad games.
I don't like Monday night doubleheaders necessarily. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's 2 primetime games, but especially when you look at, this is kind of going back to the schedule thing, but like this year, like there's a Monday night doubleheader week 2, but they play an hour and 15 minutes apart. Like, I don't like that. I like when they do it week 1, which they're not doing this year. they're only having one game week 1, which is weird because they usually have a doubleheader week 1.
Right.
But they instead do the doubleheader week 2, which is just weird. And I'm going to have to, unfortunately, watch actually, well, we'll have 2 TVs hooked up in my apartment this year. So that actually won't be an issue. But normally I would have to pick one to put on my TV and then stream the other one on my computer. And being an Eagles fan, I'll be able to watch the first hour and 15 of the Titans-Bills game, but then I'm switching to the Eagles game because I want to watch the Eagles play at 8:30.
Right.
And then I have to stream Titans-Bills, which I'm an old fart and I don't like streaming. So.
Yep. You've made your streaming opinions known.
Yeah, for people that don't have ESPN Plus, you got to pick which one you want.
Mm.
And it was always nice with the week 1 doubleheader because they always have one at like 6 o'clock and then one at like 10 o'clock. So it would end early enough for the other game. But the NFL schedule is weird this year for some reason. Okay. Getting stuff as I go here. The Ravens, interesting move. It corresponded to the Mike Davis signing, but they withdrew. I wrote RFA tender. I don't know if it was. It might have been an exclusive rights instead of instead of a restricted free agent. I don't think Tyson Williams has been in the league long enough to be a restricted free agent. So more than likely it was an ERFA instead of an RFA tender. But yeah, they withdrew his tender, so he is now a free agent. Came onto the scene nicely last year with all the running back injuries, but struggled. Then they signed Devontae Freeman. Didn't get any playing time really down the rest of the season. So,
yeah, and I mean, you mentioned they signed Mike Davis, but I think the one thing, if you have a criticism of the Ravens offseason, I mean, they had a really great draft and all that, but I just feel like they should have addressed that running back room a little bit more. You saw what happened last year when they got gashed with injuries. And I don't know. I feel like if I was them with how important the rushing attack is, to maybe bring in a little bit more there. I don't know.
I think they're betting.
Yeah.
They're betting on their guys to come back from the ACLs. So J.K. Dobbins and Gus the Bus Edwards there. Bring in Mike Davis. They also have Justice Hill, who they drafted in the 4th round a couple of years ago. So, yeah. Mike Davis, the Ravens signed. I'll just jump down to that deal real quick. 1 year, $1.2 million. Former Falcons, Panthers running back. The Giants, talked about this before, but they officially released corner James Bradbury. $10.1 million in savings, $11.7 million in dead cap. Will be significantly less of a dead hit if they put it as a post June 1 release. But yeah, obviously, I mean, I'd have to think. I don't know what the free agent landscape looks like, but I would have to think James Bradbury is probably the number 1 free agent available now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I feel like it's past the point where, he's in line for like a multi-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably going to be a 1-year semi-prove it, but he is definitely, in terms of a talent perspective, I think probably the best free agent out there.
Yeah, and he's going to have to play in a zone scheme. That's what he is best at, is playing cover 3 zone, like he did in Carolina and like he did in New York. But I know I have seen it mentioned, just take a little drive down to Pennsylvania and
Mhm.
head to Philadelphia, I think that'd be a perfect fit if he's willing to take the little amount of money that the Eagles have available now with all their moves that they did this offseason.
Mhm.
I think that would be a good fit.
Yeah. And I mean, he has familiarity with the division. It's not anything new to see somebody jump to a division rival. So
Yeah, I mean the Giants have seen it done themselves when uh, they or no was that never mind. I'm thinking of Landon Collins, but did he didn't play in New York, did he?
yeah, he did.
Did he?
I think so. Yep.
He jumped from the Giants to
Yep.
Washington.
Yep.
That's what I thought. I was second guessing myself. I don't know.
It's hard because he's been jumping around from safety to like linebacker.
And he's with the Bears and Packers and whatnot. But the Chiefs originally, right after the draft, they had to get some cap space, so they released center Austin Ryder. He is now back with Kansas City. They re-signed him this week. All right, so free agent deals here. These first two were the ones that surprised me, kind of just because of the money that they got at this point in the offseason. So the Texans signed two Bills pass rushers, defensive ends Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. Hughes got a 2-year, $10 million deal, and Mario Addison got a 2-year, $7.7 million deal. So one thing is weird that we see, multi-year deals. And two, 5 million. I mean, granted, when you break it down into the yearly, it's not as bad, but the just seeing 10 million at this point in the season, off season for Jerry Hughes.
Yeah. And I mean, the other weird thing is like the Texans got to know that they're just like not in a position to compete in the AFC. Like they just flat out aren't yet. So I don't know. I just don't like spending. And again, I mean, it's not breaking the bank necessarily, but multi-year deals, upwards of 7 million. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of the, you mentioned the Falcons. It's another one where the Texans are another team where it's hard to figure out the vision. And maybe what they're doing is they want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they want to build as decent of a defense as they can to evaluate Davis Mills with, because I feel like building a good defense for young quarterbacks doesn't get talked about enough. And how that can help their development, because if you're always starting, pinned near your own end zone, you're just not going to have a lot of success. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like at this point you want to just draft and develop, hold on to the money until you can see more clearly where you're going as a franchise.
See, I think I'm on the opposite end. I think the Texans showed what they were doing this offseason with the hiring of Lovie Smith. They drafted players that they know will fit in his defense and are the type of players that he wants. And I think offensively, they tried to build as much around Davis Mills as they could without spending a lot of money and without trading away, premium picks to get veteran players like we saw with Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, etc. Tyreek Hill. So
yeah, but even then, I just like Lovie Smith got fired from Illinois. I just don't know if he's the
he's a better
long-term
NFL
answer
head
there.
coach. He's a better NFL.
you, I don't.
He took the Bears. He took Rex Grossman to a Super Bowl. I mean, come
That
on.
was a long time ago, though, man. Yeah, I don't know.
But he knows coach defense. Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, Charles Tillman. Obviously they had some outstanding players on that Chicago defense, but I think Texans defense will be very much better. I don't remember who he hired as OC. I think they kept their OC.
It's Pep Hamilton.
Yeah. So, keeping continuity within the offense, I think Davis Mills. Again, I've been on the Davis Mills train since he was drafted last year, and I'm going to continue. I think the Texans are going to surprise a lot of people, man. I already love their over wins. I don't remember what it's set at. I think it's only set at like 5.5 or something like that. I love that number. I think they'll win 6, 7, 8 games this year.
I definitely think they got better. Like I said, I don't think that they're in a position to like spend these contracts.
Well, I think Nick Caserio structured. They probably structured the deals where it's only a 1-year deal essentially.
Right.
This was probably the biggest signing so far post draft. These Saints got a massive boost their wide receiver room. They signed Jarvis Landry, former Browns Dolphins wide receiver, 1-year, $6 million deal. That's all it took. But he took the hometown discount, played at LSU. He's from New Orleans. Him and Tyrann Mathieu both going back home.
Yeah.
It's helping Jameis Winston out. And they got a pretty good threesome there now. Michael Thomas, Chris Olave.
Yeah, they have a really good wide receiver room actually. Even Marquez Callaway, I think, I think last year they asked him to be in more of a bigger role than he's capable at right now. But I think with the additions they made this offseason, I think him as like a wide receiver 4 is perfect.
Re-signed Traquan Smith as well. We'll see. We'll have to see if Jameis comes back well from his knee. But the Chargers, you already said this last show we had, but we got the numbers on the deal. Chargers signed Patriots linebacker Kyle Van Noy, 1 year, $2.25 million. Played over 70% of the snaps for Patriots last year. So gonna be a contributor for Brandon Staley.
Yep.
This move was weird. The Dolphins running back, I don't know what. There's another position group in the league. What are you doing? The Dolphins signed Rams running back Sony Michel, a 1 year, $1.75 million. What are they? How many running backs do you need, bro? Like, what are they gonna do? Run the freaking wishbone?
Yeah, I joked on Twitter. It was like Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones. It was like Mike McDaniel collecting fringe veteran running backs.
Right. So ESPN only goes 4 deep on their depth chart, but Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin. 3 of those 4 acquired this offseason.
Yep. And last year they drafted kid out of Cincinnati, Garrett Dokes, right?
Yeah, well, and they were they the team that drafted Jerome Ford this year too?
No, I don't think so. I think Ford went somewhere else. Could be wrong.
They also have Salvin Ahmed.
Yeah, that's the other guy.
Garrett Dokes. and they signed Zaquandre White as an undrafted free agent out of South Carolina, Zamir White's brother. So yeah, I have, and I mean they also signed Alec Ingold in free agency. So it's like, bro, what? I guess they're gonna run. I mean, obviously with Mike McDaniel, they're gonna run the Kyle Shanahan play action. But I guess that's what they did in San Francisco, anyways.
Right.
They had like 3 or 4 backs, and they just rotated.
Right. It was they basically cobbled together a RB1 through a committee, right? You know, they had a really successful rushing attack, but it was spread out. So I mean, it is definitely a Shanahan move, but it feels like overkill.
Yeah, it's fantasy hell.
Oh yeah. Do not touch any of these guys.
Well, you can do that, or you can do what my good brother Nick Russo likes to do with Patriots running backs. He'll draft both of the top 2 guys, and you start them both.
Handcuff it. But it's like you would need like 3 handcuffs for this. You'd need Edmonds, Mostert, and probably Michelle to do that.
Start all 3 of them.
Right, yeah.
RB1, RB2, and your flex. All Dolphins running backs every week. Okay. The Raiders. So they traded away Brian Cole. They got another receiver. They signed former Jags and Jets wide receiver Keelan Cole, 1 year, $1.27 million. Yeah, Keelan Cole severely disappointed in New York, but I think still has some game. I liked him when he was in Jacksonville, was playing well there, just did not get it done in New York. He was buried a little bit on the depth chart too when he went to the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good depth signing.
Yeah. The Bears got a new quarterback. They signed Raiders quarterback Nathan Peterman to a 1-year deal. So he slots in behind Justin Fields. And who do they sign?
Do they still have Foles?
Nope. They released Foles. They signed Trevor Siemian. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So Nathan Peterman, third quarterback behind Fields and Siemian. Bears also got another wide receiver, which the Bears were in that bottom 3 or 5 that needed receivers this all season and didn't do much either. They signed former Titans and Falcons wide receiver Tajay Sharp to a 1-year deal. So their wide receivers now look like Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is your wide receiver 1.
And you're asking a lot for him to break out, right? And I mean, I think he has the potential to do it. I like Darnell Mooney. He's on my dynasty squad, but
that was what he had Allen Robinson to take.
Right. Yeah.
So you got Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, who they signed from Kansas City. They drafted Velus Jones in the 3rd round, I think. We'll talk about him more, but yeah, drafted him in the 3rd round. You got Equanimeous St. Brown coming over from the Packers. Daz Newsome. Who they drafted in the 6th round last year.
Yeah.
And Tajay Sharp. They also signed Dante Pettis, former Niners and Giants wide receiver Dante Pettis, to a 1-year deal as well. He is there. You got David Moore, journeyman David Moore. I don't even know who he last played for. He's been around.
Seahawks, I think.
He was in Carolina. Did he go back to Seattle? Oh no, he was with the Broncos. He was with the Packers and the Broncos last year,
Hmm.
and the Seahawks. But he was on the Packers and Broncos practice squad, I think. Nasimba Webster, Isaiah Coulter. Those are the guys I know. But
It's bad.
yeah.
And we'll get into more of the Bears in the the draft recap from a draft perspective, but the way they've built this roster around Justin Fields is just not. It's asking a lot for him to make a big leap in year 2. I honestly think we'll come away from this season thinking like, wow, he did a decent job for what he had to work with. But again, you don't want that to be the takeaway. You want to be like, okay, we think this guy could be the franchise guy. So yeah.
The Raiders, they signed Rams and Broncos linebacker Kenny Young. Helped them out in the middle there. I feel like the Raiders sign a linebacker every single offseason. They cannot get the linebacker spot right.
Yep.
It's just they can't.
It's evergreen.
The Colts, they signed Packers offensive tackle Dennis Kelly. So there is the signing that we were looking for. Possibly. It's not what Chris wanted.
Yeah.
Chris's guy, Eric Fisher, still out there. But yeah, the Colts did get a potential starter at left tackle there with Dennis Kelly. So I think that's going to have to be their guy at this point anyways.
Right. Unless they do something else. But
yeah, because who was their right? Braden Smith is not going to move from right tackle. He is good there. So, and why? Why did it? Okay, I don't know why. The ESPN's depth chart still has Matt Pryor as the starting left tackle. That's not going to happen. Matt Pryor is a guard. So yeah, I think it's going to be, you're going to see a battle, Dennis Kelly versus Bernard Ryman in training camp. We'll see if the rookie get it done or not. The Falcons, I already said that they signed Geronimo Allison from the Lions. Then just one visit to take note of: the Jets hosted one of the big name remaining free agents, Bengals defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi, for a visit. They actually had him visit twice. We'll see if he signs and gets to help out Robert Saleh's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Packers use Larry Ogunjobi?
I'd rather just roll and see what the rook Devontae Wyatt can do, who we're going to talk about in a sec.
Yeah. So let's get into that, because I don't think I have anything new on Twitter. So yeah. So the NFC North draft. Once again, we have a full screen of first round and 1 second round draft pick. The Bears' first pick was 39th overall, but Aiden Hutchinson, number 2 overall. I don't know why he was the only one that, when I searched him with Lions attached at the end, it didn't come up with his draft card like this.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other ones did, but I don't know. So I got that nice animated picture of him.
Right.
Lions, their second first rounder, Jameson Williams, traded up with the Vikings to get him at number 12. Packers 2 firsts, Quay Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, 22. Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle out of Georgia, 28th. Vikings also went to Georgia. Lewis Seen, safety, 32nd overall, last pick of the first. And then the Bears' first pick of the draft, second round, 39th overall, corner out of Washington, Kyler Gordon. So starting off with Detroit. Like I said, their 2 first-round picks, Hutchinson and Williams. Second round, they went edge again with Joshua Pascal out of Kentucky, 46th overall. Third round, safety Kirby Joseph out of Illinois, number 97. Didn't have a fourth rounder. Fifth round, they went to get some depth at tight end. James Mitchell, Virginia Tech, number 177. Sixth, they had 2 picks, linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, Oklahoma State, number 188, and edge rusher James Houston out of Jackson State, number 217. That is Dion's first draft pick, I believe, as head coach of Jackson State. And then their last pick in the 7th, corner Chase Lucas, Arizona State, number 237 overall. The Lions were weird. I don't know. It was
really.
I mean, I love Abe Hutchinson. Love that one. We kind of talked about this before, but the Jameson Williams thing on a non-competitive roster, I liked, like I said before, I liked what they said they were doing, where they're drafting best available and they'll get a quarterback next year. Mm-hmm. But again, the issue is, what if you're not high enough to get a quarterback next year?
Yeah.
You do still have 2 picks because you still have the Rams pick, but the Rams are a playoff team. More than likely, it's going to be in the 20s where that other pick is. So that's the issue with that. And they just went all defense except for Williams and a backup tight end and James Mitchell. So I love Malcolm Rodriguez, though. I think that is the late round steal that they got. Great player out of Oklahoma State. I was kind of surprised that he was a linebacker because it might just have been me, but whenever I remembered Malcolm Rodriguez at Oklahoma State, I always remembered him rushing the passer. So I don't know.
Yeah. He's a pretty versatile dude. I think he has a lot of special teams upside too. So
yeah, your thoughts on the Lions?
Yeah. So I loved the Lions draft. Actually, I tweeted out, I as a Packers fan, I am more worried about what the Lions could be in a couple of years than what the Bears could be or what the Vikings currently are. I think they're building this team the right way. And I think that the trade up for Jameson Williams, I wouldn't have liked, kind of like you said, because they aren't competitive right now. You kind of want to just stay there and hold pat. But I thought the compensation was good. They traded up from 32 to 12 and from 66 to 46. And they only had to give up pick 32, right? Or 32 and 34.
32, 34, and I believe, yeah, I think that might have been it. I think they gave up. I don't remember if they originally had 3 second rounders.
They had 32,
34,
and 34. So they gave up 34. To me, it was fair for, I think, what they got in Jameson Williams. And I think it's a perfect fit because, like you said, they aren't competitive right now. They can bring him along slowly, let him fully heal. They don't feel pressure to throw him in right away, like maybe a compete now team would be. And I think, we could be looking back at this and saying the Lions got the 2 best players at their respective positions in the draft. I think that if Jameson Williams never tears his ACL, I think he's probably wide receiver 1. Speed kills in the NFL. Everyone's trying to get it. And I think if Henry Ruggs goes first in a draft class that had CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, I think Jameson Williams could have easily been wide receiver 1 in this class. So I love that. Joshua Pascal is interesting, but I think he can also be a decent fit because he's a bigger dude. So he can play some interior for you too, which is good. And then Kirby Joseph, I liked out of Illinois. He's a ball hawking safety. And for me, this defense is pretty improved. You look at the guys they added at DT last year in Levi Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil. That D line is going to be pretty formidable. At least it looks so on paper. Their wide receiver room, a lot of good young guys with Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and DJ Chark. Their safety positions are locked up. Really, to me, I mean, the only glaring things they need, obviously, they have a really good O-line, are kind of quarterback. They could probably use another cornerback and then inside linebacker. But yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this on the last pod. I probably would have liked them to use one of their picks on a quarterback, especially with guys like Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder, like all on the board at some of those later round picks. Because while Jared Goff is the QB, I'm not afraid of the Lions, right? But I do think that aside, I feel like this roster is being built in a very good way. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if the Lions were pretty successful last year or this year. At least I definitely do not see them picking at second again.
Yeah, I agree with the quarterback thing, especially with their 5th rounder. Sam Howell went the 5th round.
Yeah.
I definitely would have liked to replace James Mitchell with Sam Howell. So especially, I mean, ESPN has James Mitchell as the 4th tight end right now, not even making the roster, you know. Granted, I don't know. He might. He's got Brock Wright and Garrett Griffin to battle with behind Hawk. But I don't know. I don't know who's going to win those battles. I mean, that's pretty terrible depth behind Hawk. But actually, Brock Wright's been pretty good for them. He's kind of a guy that no one knows about. But yeah, Lions are okay. They're just, I don't think they're like anything special at this point. Yeah, I think I agree though. I think corner is definitely the biggest issue of need, which was weird that they didn't address that because they knew that was their biggest need. They didn't do anything to address that this offseason at all. They didn't even sign anyone in free agency either. They're just going to roll with the same guys they have. Hoping Okuda comes back from his injury.
Right.
Well, actually, they did sign Mike Hughes. That was one guy. But Mike Hughes has so far been a bust as a first-round pick with the Vikings.
Yeah.
I
think the hope
he had that legal issue, but
yeah. I think the hope is that Okuda comes back and he is that dude that you spent that number 3 overall pick on, which, I mean, that might be a big swing and a miss, but yeah, I mean, you spent that much capital on him, that premium position. You gotta at least hopefully he just comes back healthy.
Yeah, and I think this is make or break. I mean, he's heading into year 3.
Yep.
And so far, his okay, never mind. I thought they were classmates, but never mind. The guy they drafted the year before him, Amani Oruwariye, who they only had to spend a 5th round pick on, has outshined him, partly because Amani's been on the field.
Right.
So yeah, that's a big deal for them. Maybe Dan Campbell will just say, all right, the hell with it. We're gonna run 3 safeties instead of 5 corners out there. But yeah, I feel like the Lions are gonna be right in the middle or around the middle in
Yeah.
every category, offensively and defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now heading on to your Packers. Quay Walker 22, Devontae Wyatt 28. Second round, wide receiver Christian Watson, North Dakota State, number 34. Third round, guard Sean Ryan out of UCLA, number 92. Fourth, 2 picks, wide receiver Romeo Dobbs, Nevada, 132. And offensive tackle Zach Tom out of Wake Forest, number 140. Fifth round, edge rusher Kingsley Enagbare from South Carolina, number 179. Didn't have a 6th round pick. And then 4 7th round selections. Safety Tariq Carpenter out of Georgia Tech, number 228. D tackle Jonathan Ford out of Miami, number 234. Offensive tackle Rasheed Walker out of Penn State, number 249. And wide receiver Samori Toure, Nebraska, number 258. Go ahead, Packers fan.
So this draft was really interesting, and it always is for Packers fans, right? And I feel like it depended on which day of the draft. If you asked me how I felt about it, after day 1, there was some worry. It was interesting because in a lot of ways, they seem to break tendencies. They have not valued off-ball linebacker in the draft, and they had just paid Devondre Campbell. So a lot of people just had them not taking linebacker at all completely. So that was surprising when they took Quay Walker. Devontae Wyatt is somebody who I loved for the Packers in the pre-draft process because I think he completely fits in as a 3-tech or a 3-4 D end. But a lot of people had him completely off the Packers boards because he's 24, and the Packers typically do not draft older players. So that was interesting. Looking back on it, I do really like it. I love on paper what this defense could be. You have 2 guys in the middle of the defense who can be really good. Quay Walker is a hyper athlete, put up insane numbers, insane testing numbers, as did Devontae Wyatt. He kind of quietly put up an outstanding combine because, I mean, Jordan Davis is as big as a house and he ran a 4.7. So he got kind of overshadowed, quite literally, because Jordan Davis is 6'6". But Devontae Wyatt is really good interior pass rusher, and probably the best interior pass rusher in the draft. And the way I put it is, for years, Packers fans have been clamoring for inside linebacker help. Like we've had to live through Blake Martinez, Jake Ryan, just rolling out there with undrafted free agents and 6th round picks at the inside linebacker spot. Now we have a hyper athlete and an all-pro caliber guy in Devondre Campbell. Packers fans have also been clamoring for help for Kenny Clark on the interior because guys like Dean Lowry and Tyler Lancaster are seeing a lot more snaps than they probably should. Well, they just got Devontae Wyatt, who's one of the best interior pass rushers in the class. So after day 1, there was still some trepidation, however, because wide receiver is still a complete question mark. Well, then they move up to get Christian Watson, who was expensive. It was an expensive trade. They gave up 59 to move up from 53. But I love Christian Watson. I was in the camp that he was a first round caliber talent, put up a historic combine at the wide receiver position. He has all the physical tools you want. And I think the Packers track record for developing guys with physical tools means that he's landed kind of in a perfect situation. So I loved that pick. And then I loved the day 3. Pretty much every selection as they were coming off the board, I was like, man, Brian Gutekunst is in his bag on day 3. Love Dubs. I think he can carve up a role pretty quickly. I love Zach Tom. Zach Tom is a classic Packers pick, mid-round guy, athletic, who can play multiple spots, who's going to be a backup, but he can plug and play when there's injuries that come up. Love Sean Ryan, the Sean Ryan pick. Again, another guy who can play guard, maybe some swing tackle for you. Kingsley Enagbare, I'm not sure how he got to the 5th round. And when I saw his name come off the board for us, I had assumed he was already gone. So I was super stoked about that. I mean, he's been one of the most productive pass rushers in the SEC over the last 2 seasons. And now his testing numbers weren't great, but at that point is if you can get a guy who is that productive in the best conference in college football, I mean, you take that 10 times out of 10. So I loved that. The other signings, I don't know how. I mean, Tariq Carpenter will probably make the roster because outside of Savage and Amos, there's not a whole lot of depth at safety. I don't know about Jonathan Ford. Rasheed Walker will probably make it, although he'll compete with some of the other guys they drafted last year, Cole Van Lanen, Jake Hansen, for kind of those last few spots as backup linemen. Samari Torrey will be interesting. Potentially, if they don't bring in any more outside free agents and they want to roll with 7 wide receivers on the roster, I could see him making the roster and then playing kind of a special teams role. But yeah, I mean, as a whole, I loved the draft, and I think that it did make the team better, help plug some holes, and I'm excited to see how it's going to look for the Packers going into next season.
Yeah, I really liked their top 5 picks. Definitely needed someone beside Devondre Campbell. Got that in Quay Walker. Same thing beside Kenny Clark on the nose. Interesting, they don't have Devontae Wyatt starting right now. They have Jaron Reed in front of him. But yeah, Christian Watson, I mean, that was a get at 34. He has the potential to be a number 1 big time. Yeah. And Sean Ryan, I don't know how you feel about Royce Newman, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Ryan can beat out Royce Newman for the right guard spot.
Yeah. And they like Newman. I do know that. Newman played well last year, but I think it's good when you have competition there, right? And you can roll with multiple guys.
Yeah, the thing that I was kind of shocked about early on was that they didn't go premium at the tackle position. Mm-hmm. I know you said you think Ryan could possibly play some tackle if he needed to, but I thought it would have been a better move to draft a tackle, a true tackle, and then slide Elton Jenkins back inside, where I think he's better as a guard than at right tackle. But my guy is Romeo Doubs. I absolutely love Romeo Doubs. gonna be buried a little bit to start. I think you'll see next year where Watkins and Cobb won't be there next year. So you're going to end up with Christian Watson, Alan Lazard, Amari Rodgers, and Romeo Dobbs as your 4 in whatever order you want.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Romeo Dobbs was a massive get in the 4th. 6'2", 200, big jump ball guy. I mean, that's all he was at for Carson Strong in Nevada.
Well, and all he did was produce. I mean, that dude, he had a 20 reception game.
Yeah.
I remember watching it. I was like, you're kidding. Like, I thought it was a typo when I saw like the video come up on my YouTube like feed, and I watched it. I was like, you're kidding.
Yeah, and I mean, we thought he was productive with Carson Strong against Mountain West defenses. I mean,
right.
He's got one of the best quarterbacks throwing in the ball. Yeah, absolutely. That was my steal for the Packers. I also loved Rasheed Walker. Now, this is not me just being Penn State biased. Rasheed Walker, I was shocked that he went all the way in the 7th round. I thought he was in the conversation for day 2, tackle wise. I don't really know why he dropped all the way to the 7th round, but yeah, I thought that was a big get, and a guy that, like you said, could possibly make the roster as the swing. I think he could be the swing tackle because I have no clue who any of these other people are behind Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins at tackle right now. Cole Van Lannon mentioned him, but the other guys that they're showing at tackle, Josh Nijman.
Josh Nijman. Nijman. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Jameer Johnson and Caleb Jones.
So I actually do know that they do actually like Josh Nijman, and that he did play okay in spots last year with Bakhtiari out. He actually did fairly well. So I think that's kind of why they didn't go more pure tackles with some of these alignment. And I think that it does probably signal that Elton Jenkins is going to move to right tackle.
Yeah. But I really liked that they got three linemen. They needed that depth. I think there's still major question marks when it comes to defense, though. I mean, you mentioned about getting guys around Kenny Clark. There is not much. I mean, drafting Jonathan Ford, if he makes the roster. Again, I don't know much about the other guys that are listed behind Lowry, Clark, and Reed and Wyatt. I've heard of TJ Slayton and Jack Heflin. Hawati Pututau, and Akiel Byers. Those are the other guys. Same thing can be said for the edge. Behind Preston Smith, Gary, and Enigbare, you got Tipa Galii, Randy Ramsey, Jonathan Garvin, Ladarius Hamilton, and Chauncey Manick. Chauncey Manick, I didn't realize they signed him. Undrafted free agent. That's a nice get. That is a great undrafted signing. He was a beast at Louisiana for the Raging Cajuns. Love him there. But otherwise, the inside linebacker too. Ty Summers and Chris Barnes. It's interesting. They on the depth chart on ESPN, anyways, they transitioned Tariq Carpenter to linebacker, which leaves what you said about the safeties. That's barren.
Yeah.
Adrian Amos and Savage. Vernon Scott and Sean Davis are the two. the only two guys listed at the safety position behind those starters.
Yep.
So, yeah, I thought that they probably should have went a couple more defensive backs in the later rounds. But
yeah, I mean, that's why it was so interesting with the Quay Walker pick, because a lot of people, at least a lot of the Packers beat writers that I follow, were very high on guys like Daxton Hill and Lewis Seen, and thought that the Packers would also be high on those guys, because last year we did play a lot of 3 safety sets. But I think with the Quay Walker pick, and Brian Gutekunst said as much in his post-draft presser, is it's going to allow them to play more of their base defense, which is two linebackers, 2 safeties. So I think it'll change what the defense looks like a little bit. Tariq Carpenter, I think, can play both. I think he can play safety and linebacker. He's kind of a box safety, I think. Obviously, you'd like to have a little bit more depth there. But I don't know.
yeah, they did also get another nice flyer, going back to my Penn State boys. At the linebacker position, they signed Ellis Brooks as an undrafted free agent as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like him, obviously. But yeah, I think the defense, they better not get injured, the starters.
Yeah.
It is not pretty behind what they have starting 11. Offensively, I think they're fine. Depth, all positions should be fine. Depth on offense, just a lot of stuff on defense to worry about in terms of if you get injured. And I don't know about Samori Toure making the roster, because he's going to have to make it as an actual receiver, because unless they change it, but Amari Rodgers is the returner right now. So unless they switch that to Toure, I don't know how he would make the roster.
Yeah, they tried to kind of cram Amari Rodgers into that role last year, and it didn't really work out great. So, but on the other hand, Dubs and Watson also have return experience. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting. I do think if Torrey cracks the roster, it is as a special teamer. If it's not, then I don't think he cracks it. But I don't know. We'll see. I thought it was a decent flyer in the late rounds. He was pretty good for Nebraska.
Yeah, just like the Lions, I would have liked to see that pick switched with a corner. Possibly. Weirdly enough, the Packers have 3 kickers on the depth chart right now. Crosby, J.J. Molson, and Dominic Eberle. Great. So you couldn't use 2 of those spots to add defensive depth. I see.
Dude, gotta have the kicking competition.
Well, Crosby was absolutely terrible, last year. Okay, on to Minnesota. So Scene going 32. Second round, corner Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson, number 42. Guard Ed Ingram, LSU, number 59. Third round, linebacker Brian Asamoah, Oklahoma, number 66. Fourth, corner Caleb Evans, Missouri, number 118. Fifth, edge rusher Asezi Otumuo out of Minnesota, number 165. Also in the 5th, running back Ty Chandler of North Carolina, number 169. 6th rounder, they had 2. Offensive tackle Vidarian Lowe, Illinois, number 184. And wide receiver Jalen Naylor, Michigan State, number 191. And rounding it out in the 7th, tight end Nick Muse, South Carolina, number 227. I think the Vikings did well. Top 3 picks, loved them all 3. They massively needed secondary help, with especially with Harrison Smith getting long in the tooth right now. 33, I think he will turn this year. He is 33. He already turned 33. Okay. So yeah. Harrison Smith, 33. They needed a second safety anyways. Lewis Seen slots right in there. Andrew Booth's going to help them, especially Patrick Peterson again. Old guy in his 30s already. Needed it regardless of whether Patrick Peterson was there. The Ed Ingram thing I was kind of iffy on, though. I feel like the Vikings have drafted offensive linemen pretty high in the last couple of drafts, and they haven't got it right. Specifically on the inside, they have their 2 tackles and their center. They just haven't been able to find consistent guard play. The rest of it, I think, is so in terms of day 3. Asamoah, yeah. It's whatever. But the other guys I wasn't that high on. Jalen Naylor was a beast at Michigan State. Just don't know how he really cracks the roster. Maybe as wide receiver 6, possibly. Don't know too much about Lowe or Otomuo, Caleb Evans. Ty Chandler, it was another running back. Just, I feel like there's a big surplus in running backs right now because there were a lot of teams that drafted running backs where I was like, why? Why do you need a running back? You already have like 3 or 4 that are pretty solid. So, but yeah, I don't know if Ty Chandler will even make it or not because they drafted Kene Nwangwu last year and he's their returner. So
yeah, I thought it was a good draft for the Vikings. You know, when I look at their offseason, I think their defense should be very much improved from where it was last year. Obviously, they needed some secondary help, and they got that with their first 2 picks. But I mean, when I'm thinking about how I'm evaluating kind of my division rival draft classes, I kind of think about, all right, like what scares me? Like none of this really scares me a whole lot, especially as long as Kirk Cousins is the quarterback. I think he can only take you so far. I mean, he's better than obviously Jared Goff is in Detroit, but I just don't think they can overcome his limitations. And we've kind of been talking about where we might have liked to see these teams go in a different direction. As much as I like Brian Asamoah, and I think it was a good pick because he can eventually be the starter whenever their 2 inside linebackers age out, I would have liked to see a quarterback in 66. At that point, pretty much all QB2s were on the board. And at that point, round 3, I don't know. I think it's a good spot to just take a swing on one of these guys. All these guys had upside. They also obviously came with risks. But, I mean, if you swing and miss in round 3, you're only losing a 3rd-round pick. And you could potentially gaining an upgrade over Kirk Cousins. So, like I said, I think they got better. I don't know.
It would have been funny to draft a quarterback at 66 again because that would have been 2 years in a row that they would have drafted a quarterback at 66. Drafting Kellen Mond at that exact draft slot last year. I still think they are trying to develop Kellen Mond.
And that could be it. Like maybe they like what they have in him. But
I mean, from what I saw in the preseason last year, and I think he got a little bit of regular season work too, I think. It was absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I'm surprised he's listed as the 2nd quarterback right now over Sean Mannion. But yeah, I agree that. How many starters did they get? 1. At least that's what, ESPN list is they only got one starter out of this draft class, which was Lewis Seen.
I think that if Booth is healthy, I think he'll crack the starting lineup. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the Vikings are in the same boat as the Packers at safety. There is not much there behind the top two. And yeah, Asamoah. I was kind of disappointed though because they have my guy Troy Dye at linebacker. The Vikings do that I love. Drafted at Oregon last year, but he is now in a third string. At least that's what they put him at. I didn't realize that they are switching to a 3-4 this year with the new head coach. So I'm interested to see how that affects Daniil Hunter. Because I don't think he's played in a 3-4 before.
Yeah. And the other thing is that both of their edges right now, Zadarius Smith, Daniil Hunter, very good, talented players. Both of them are injury prone.
And I feel bad for DJ Wonnum because I don't feel like DJ Wonnum can play an outside linebacker spot. And why did my phone just lose service? I don't know. It just dropped out of nowhere. Just absolutely no service. How does that happen? I just thought I can't search anything. Cool. Luckily, I have my Microsoft Word app that I can still see the script. Otherwise, you'd be running the show. But yeah, I think that's good on the Packers or the Vikings. I mean, we didn't get your. I guess we'll wait till the end for your grades, like we did on the last show. But moving on to the Bears, didn't have a first round pick because of the Justin Fields trade. But they came back second round. Corner Kyler Gordon, Washington, number 39. Safety Jaquan Brisker, Penn State, number 48. Third round, wide receiver Velus Jones Jr., Tennessee, number 71. Didn't have a fourth rounder, but they had a boatload of 5th through 7th round picks. 5th round offensive tackle Braxton Jones, Southern Utah, number 168. Edge rusher Dominique Robinson, Miami, Ohio, number 174. 6th round, guard Zach Thomas, San Diego State, number 186. Running back Treston Ebner, Baylor, number 203. Center Doug Kramer out of Illinois, number 207. And then the 7th, they had 3 picks. Guard Jatiri Carter out of Southern, number 226. Defensive back Elijah Hicks out of Cal, number 254, and punter Trenton Gill, NC State, number 255. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Bears definitely did need some help in the secondary, and they got 2 really good players. I really like Jaquan Brisker. I think he automatically comes in and is the leader at that safety spot. I like Kyler Gordon. But when you're doing a draft and you're building a roster, you have to have kind of a plan in mind. And in today's NFL, when you have a young quarterback, that plan in mind needs to be surrounding him with as much talent as possible to maximize his evaluation window, to evaluate him in the best possible situation. That plan has not been even remotely close to the Bears' plan this offseason. They got a defensive-minded head coach. They brought in defensive free agents. And with their 2 top picks in the draft, they took defensive backs. And we ran through their wide receiver room earlier. It's just not – it's probably the worst in the NFL. Like, if on paper, if you put it up against all the other teams. And again, I like Darnell Mooney. I think he can be good. And he has chemistry with Fields, but there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of question marks on that O-line. And I understand they drafted 4 O-linemen in the later rounds, but that's a crapshoot when you get there. Those could be some good depth pieces, but I don't know if those guys could crack the starting lineup if they need to, and they might need them to. So you're looking at a situation for Justin Fields where of all the second-year quarterbacks, he is easily in the worst situation. So I don't know. I don't get the vision. And I don't know. Pray for Justin Fields.
Yeah, the vision, I think, for the Bears, at least for this season, is we're gonna play defense and we're gonna run the ball, and hopefully we don't turn into the Pittsburgh Maulers.
Man, that was a great callback to the beginning of the episode.
That is essentially what I look at this roster and how it's shaped. I think that's how they're going to have to play. They don't really have options, and I don't know what's going to happen. Like, what happens if they start 0-5 and Justin Fields is playing like crap?
Right.
You can't bench him. I mean, that would be just a severe strike to a second-year player's psyche. So, I mean, I do like the fact that they have a veteran guy in Trevor Siemian there that will be more than willing to help him, I think. Unlike Marcus Mariota is to, or Ryan Tannehill, I mean.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill is to Malik Willis.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think they're going to run the 1-2 punch with Dave Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Their offensive line, I think, is pretty good in terms of the starters. I think the weak point is right tackle with Larry Borum, who's a second-year guy, 5th round last year out of Missouri. But in terms of the draft, though, loved their top 3, Gordon, Brisker, and Jones. Jones, I thought, was sneaky. Had a pretty good season at Tennessee, was dealing with some inconsistent quarterback play, which he'll probably get again with Chicago. But yeah, I don't know why Justin Fields had to run around so much last year. Again, like I said, I think the line's pretty fine. Granted, they did sign Lucas Patrick this offseason from Green Bay. So that was one addition anyways. And Dakota Dozier, did he come from Minnesota? Yeah.
I think so. Yep.
I couldn't remember if he was still there last year. So, yeah, they got him from the Vikings. So there's 2 additions. But in terms of the draft, like I said, the top 3, you were right. Brisker's going to slide in right beside Eddie Jackson. Gordon, I wouldn't be surprised. He should be starting. Why he is not on the depth chart, I don't know. Duke Shelley is starting right now. So whatever. But yeah, Velus Jones, he'll start right away, whether that's at the second wide receiver spot or the third one. And then when you look at their day 3 picks, I think Dominique Robinson has potential. Guy that switched from wide receiver to defensive end. But he's massive, I think, right? Yeah, 6'4", 252. So he's going to be a nice piece behind Robert Quinn and Al-Qadim Muhammad. And then you look at a return guy with Treston Ebner, electric returner. Now, the issue with Ebner is that they already have a bunch of return guys in Chicago. I mean, they have they have it listed anyways. Daz Newsome, Nasimba Webster, Valus Jones at punt return. Kick return, they have Khalil Herbert, Byron Pringle, Valus Jones. But I mean, they have other guys too. Dante Pettis, returner. Who there was other guys. I thought, I don't know. Maybe I was thinking about some different people, but yeah, I mean, they already have return guys there. And they also signed Darrington Evans in the offseason from Tennessee. So they already have 3 running backs. It'll be tough, I think, for Ebner to make the roster. And then you got Doug Kramer. Doug Kramer's my draft gem from the Bears. I think that was a nice pick in the 6th round. Illinois center. He's listed in the 3rd string right now. But I think at the very least, he won't make it at center, I don't think. He'll have to slide to guard. But there's definitely competition there at the backup guard spots because I have no clue who Dieter Iselin and Willie Wright are. So I think Kramer can make it as a backup interior guy there. And then, of course, the punter, Trenton Gill, NC State. Don't know too much about him, but he will battle with Ryan Winslow for the punting spot. Yeah. It was whatever. It was really the top 3 guys. And then, like I said, I liked a couple of the guys in the later rounds. But before we wrap it up here, your 4 grades for the NFC North.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the Lions an A+. I did really like it. And I think, we talked about, probably would have liked to see a quarterback slide in there somewhere. But I think that this roster is pretty solid on paper. And I liked their top 4 picks. So like that, the Packers, I'm going to give a B+. I'm very optimistic about this draft. This is probably the closest draft to where the fans liked it as well. There's usually some hurt feelings after the draft between Packers fandom and the front office, but very optimistic about this draft. I think a B+ grade. The Vikings, I'll give it a B+. We talked about would have liked to see a quarterback maybe in there just to see maybe what that guy can develop into. But I do think they helped upgrade their defense. And I think that as long as they're healthy, their defense should be much more improved next season. And I think that will help them to be competitive, especially in kind of a weaker division. The Bears, I'm going to give a C. I liked it on paper. I liked the first 2 picks. Valus Jones, I liked him as a prospect. You kind of talked about him, but he's 25, and there's some questions about whether his ceiling is really there or if he's kind of capped out. And he was taken much higher than I think what the consensus was on him. I think that a lot of teams kind of saw him as kind of a punt returner, gadget kind of guy. And I think you got to do more for Justin Fields at that position when you're trying to put him in a good situation. So I think that that was all right. I like Kyler Gordon or Jaquan Brisker, but when you are in this situation where you have to develop a young quarterback, I think the vision should have been different. I did like that they then doubled down on O-line to see, throw as many darts as possible to see if that can stick and you can put together an O-line that is at least decent for Justin Fields. So I did like that. But again, I would have liked to see their vision go a different direction. So I'll give it a C.
All righty. Next week, so before we actually finish here, I'm gonna give a quick rundown just in case we don't have a Friday show. It's still unconfirmed yet. I gotta see what if we're gonna get faster on our Friday setups, so we should eventually start to have Friday shows again. But if we don't this week, um, the week 6 USFL slate, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. So we have Tampa, 3-2 Tampa, the Bandits against the 2-3 Stars, Philadelphia Stars. And you know me, I'm a Tampa guy. I'm rolling with the Bandits. I think their defense is good enough. They're giving up 19.8 points per game. They're only scoring 16.8. But again, that score was a little bit skewed by a couple of their games that they've had. They only scored 10 against the Stallions, and they only scored 3 against the Breakers. So those 2 games really killed their scoring average. But I like where they're at, and I think their defense can win them the game. Case Cookus has not been Brian Scott, so I think there's opportunities to get turnovers off of Cookus. And I think Ta'amu, while he hasn't been lighting it up like I thought he would, I think he's done enough. I just would like to see Todd Haley get some more of the run game going, which is definitely a possibility against Philly. Philly defensively is giving up 193 rushing yards per game. So I think Tampa should be able to run the ball pretty effectively against the Stars defense. And they're giving up 25 points per game. So I think there's opportunity there. Tampa is 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 39.5 in that game. That one's at 1 p.m. on Saturday on NBC. The second game also on NBC on Saturday. Pretty good one. I think it's the 1-4 Panthers against the undefeated 5-0 hometown Birmingham Stallions. And I'm going to pick the Stallions again. I mean, I hate picking them because I highly doubt they go 10-0. But there's a potential. I think they go 6-0 at least. We've talked about Michigan. Michigan, they don't have the offense. I mean, Shea Patterson has been terrible. He had a nice game last week, but it hasn't been enough. He's turning the ball over. One thing Michigan has been able to do is run the ball. They're the number 2 rushing team in the league, 169.2 per game. And the other thing they've been able to do is stop people. Their defense, like I said, has been fantastic. 16 points allowed per game. They're giving up just over 100 yards rushing, and their passing defense is very good, 144.4 passing yards per game allowed. So Birmingham is good defensively as well. They're not far off on all 3 of those categories. So I just don't know how this game's going to play out, whether it's going to be the Birmingham offense, who I think is the number 1 offense in the league at 25.8 points per game, or is it going to be the Michigan defense at allowing 16 points per game? I don't know. My pick is Birmingham because they've been on a roll, and whether it's Jamar Smith or Alex Magoo at quarterback, I don't think it really matters. The team is feeding off the energy because their games are always the ones that get the most crowd because they are the home team. So, yeah, 6-0 for Birmingham in my book.
Got to keep going with it until they prove you wrong.
And they are 6.5-point favorites. Over under is 37.5. 7:30 on NBC. Sunday games, we have 1-4 Maulers coming off their first win of the season against the 3-2 Breakers. And I'm rolling with New Orleans. Actually, when you look at the Fox Sports app and you look at the game preview and you click on it, New Orleans wins in all categories. um, Pittsburgh's offense. Now they are kind of in the same boat as Tampa, where it's been like a couple games they put up barely anything. Only put up 3 in week 1, 0 in week 3. So those 2 games really skewed their scoring average. But it is their average. So they are averaging 12 points per game on offense. 12. Under 100 rush yards per game. They're allowing about what New Orleans puts up per game, 22. And yeah, I think the passing attack, Kyle Sloter should have another nice day. 414 yards last week. I'm not going to predict that kind of day again, but Pittsburgh's defense giving up 172 passing yards per game, 22 points per game, 119 on the ground. I think they'll be able to get it done offensively for the Breakers. And even though I think Pittsburgh's defense is good, I just think the New Orleans offense is going to be – they're going to slowly break them down, and by the fourth quarter, it's going to be too much for them. And that's where you'll see New Orleans win by more than 1 score. Even though I don't have the exact numbers, but I think there's only been about 4 games so far in the USFL that have not been 1-scored games.
That's what I was going to say earlier. I think they've done a good job of having these games competitive, even though there are teams that are like 1-4 and are like struggling, like Pittsburgh is. A lot of these games have been decided by like 1 possession.
Yeah, and I hate taking all the favorites every week, but it's like, especially this weekend, it's aside from the Tampa Philly game, all the other 3 games have good records against 1-4 teams. If you want to count New Orleans at 3-2 as a good record, I mean, they are the second team in the South right now. So, but that one is Sunday. New Orleans is a 7-point favorite. 35.5 is the over under, and 12 p.m. on FS1. Last game of week 6, the 1-4 Gamblers against the 4-1 Generals. And the only category Houston gets jersey in is points per game, and they get them by 0.2 of a point. So, yeah, it's going to be tough, especially with the uncertainty of Clayton Thorson's hand. I don't really know how that's going to play out. I think you go with the sure thing in New Jersey and their ground attack, which is putting up 180.2 rushing yards per game. And their defense, 16 points allowed per game. They're kind of like Michigan, except they have a 4-1 record instead of 1-4. And I mean, Jersey's rushing offense is good. Their rushing defense is even better. 76.6 rushing yards allowed per game. Yep. So, yeah, I think they're going to control the trenches, and maybe Kenzie Bahar gets the start for Houston. And maybe that's the wild card that allows Houston to win, but I do not see it happening. That one, another bigger point spread. Jersey is also a 7-point favorite. 37.5 is the over-under. 4 p.m. on Fox. So recap of my picks, going all the favorites: Bandits, Stallions, Breakers, and Generals. But if we do have a Friday show, we'll kind of rehash those and see if we hear anything new about injury updates, especially, like I said, Clayton Thorson there with the Gamblers. But yeah, we'll be back at the very least next Monday. I will be in Nashville. Technically Brentwood, but I will be in Tennessee. NCAA, NFL news, and our next show, whether that be Friday or Monday, we will be doing the AFC East draft recap. So hopefully Chris will be here to talk about his Jets at number 4 overall, their first pick anyways. But yeah, should be a good time. I know next show also we will have your Packer fan brethren will be here talking AFC East with us Friday or Monday. Danny Potter will be back on the show.
Love it.
Yeah, that is the show for today, though. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, etc. Thank y'all, and we will see you back on either